It's engaging now. There's two. There we are now. Right. Good evening. We finally got it, and thank you very much. And welcome to the Ref's Opinion, your weekly look at the biggest refereeing decisions in the game. Each week, we break down key incidents from matches, from controversial calls to the ones that flew under the radar. And this is where we give a referee's opinion, a referee's perspective, rather, on the moments everybody is talking about. Were the officials right, or did they get it wrong? So, thank you very much for joining us. We had a little bit of a delay, a little bit of a problem there, so I hope that didn't put you off. But I'm delighted to be joined once again by former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former World Cup referee, in fact, and the man responsible for introducing goal line technology, Keith Hackett. Thanks once again, Keith, for joining me.
Pleasure.
So if you'd like to make a comment on the show or ask a question, please, by all means, do so. There's a little thing on the bottom left-hand side or right-hand side of the screen as you're looking at it. I hope it hasn't put you off that we're best part of 10 minutes late. But anyway, better late than never. Now, there was a lot of controversy during the week, and we speak mainly about the Premier League in England. But in this instance, it involved Scottish football, and it involved the race for the title in Scotland, where Celtic were chasing Hearts. But the first game that Celtic played, and they had to win, and remember the last two games, they had to win both games, in fact. So the first game was a midweek game against Motherwell, in which a penalty kick was given late into additional time added on at the end of the game. The referee eventually went to the monitor and decided that it was a penalty, and that caused absolute uproar. And in fact, the referee, for somehow people found out where he lived and his home address, and got an awful lot of abuse, which is totally and absolutely unforgivable. Did you watch the game, Keith?
I did watch the game, and I was concerned right the way through. I think generally, these games in Scotland are pretty tough. And despite what we think, I think that they've got a number of referees who are actually pretty good performers. On this occasion, the referee didn't give the penalty kick. The VAR called him across. That for me was an error, because what had taken place was not a clear and obvious error. So he shouldn't have gone in to the VAR. The VAR shouldn't have intervened at that stage. But he did. And the referee went across and awarded a penalty kick to Celtic. I have to say that when you're making decisions as a referee, you have to be 100%. You cannot guess. And I've looked at this on a number of occasions, this particular incident, and I think ultimately the VAR and referee got this one wrong. The outcome was wrong. I don't think it was a penalty kick. It was close. The hand was up, but I don't think the hand came into contact with the ball. That was my view at the time. I stay with that. What happened afterwards, no one in football can condone. For someone, first of all, to release the address of the referee, that is unacceptable. And then to receive threats. Scotland's a village. It just, and I think that the pressure on the referees are pretty formidable, and these guys do remarkably well. So whilst I disagree,
Yeah, sorry. We've been told many, many, many times at the various meetings we go to during our refereeing career that you have to be 100% certain about the decision that you're about to give. Otherwise, you don't give it. You give the benefit of the doubt.
yes.
In this instance, I thought from looking at it that the VAR reception, the video reception, was quite blurred and not as clear as it is in the Premier League. And if what the referee was watching, if he was watching what I was watching, it didn't appear to me to be a penalty. There would have been a doubt there, and because of that doubt, then I wouldn't have given the penalty.
But he did, and sadly, the consequences were, John Beaton is a very experienced referee. As I say, my concern is, okay, referees, they're human. They make errors. They have opinions. He may still believe that what he did was right. I don't think fans have any right, or the so-called fans have any right.
Absolutely not.
To do what
absolutely not.
I think, despite what a lot of people think, I think the referees this season in Scotland, I think we've commented pretty positively on refereeing performances. When you look at that game yesterday, it was Celtic versus Hearts, a league decider. A very experienced referee, Don Robertson, on the game. He's going to start off, isn't he, with his tolerance level pretty high. He's going to make some allowances. I thought he had an outstanding performance. I really liked the way he managed players. I loved his calmness. His decision-making accuracy was pretty sound. He didn't jump in with cards. Sometimes, a card has to be given if it's a reckless challenge. I think he was not overzealous. Thought he got a good balance. At that stage, Celtic, I think, needed a win, went into the lead, and the goalkeeper of Hearts went up trying to secure a draw, which they would have then won the championship. But the ball broke clear. It went to a forward, and all he had to do was put it in the back of an open net. And then mayhem.
Yeah.
Fans on the pitch. And John Beaton's, in fairness, he's got to, first of all, look after the health and welfare of his two colleagues and his fourth official. And he's also got a responsibility. And he quickly brought the players and the referees off. The players go at a different pace, but he seemed to be consulting with the head of security and the security people. We don't know what the outcome was. The players didn't go back on the pitch. The game was officially declared finished. There seems to be some doubt about that. I've no doubt there'll be challenges to that decision. But for me, I think from, looking as a referee, in that situation, he has to bring the players off. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very difficult, in a final game of the season, to actually stop fans coming on. It's almost a tradition. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand some of those fans were overzealous against Hearts players. That's a massive, massive disappointment. What the outcome will be, I don't know. I've said earlier today, I think that if a deterrent has got to be produced, the only deterrent is that the home club is responsible for the fans. Remember, there was only about 800 in a several thousand crowd, full house. There's only 800 Hearts fans. So the majority of people coming onto the pitch have got to be Celtic players, elated, jubilant that they've won the league, understanding that. But it's against, I think, competition rules. So I think that the Scottish FA have got to look at it. They've got to consider a deterrent. That deterrent may well be a points deduction for the start of the new season. Somebody suggested to me earlier today, well, they'll replay the game. At this time of the season, let me tell you, the game has ended and the players can't get quick enough onto that aeroplane to go on their holidays.
And of course, the World Cup is coming up as well. I've mentioned in the past that we are viewed by people all over the world, and this young man from Australia, Doug Prentice, and he sent me 2 very long texts. I'm just going to pick out little bits in it. He said, "So now we have seen refereeing recruitment programs nosedive." He's suggesting that who the hell would want to be a referee with this kind of hassle and this kind of pressure? He said, "Who would want to take up the whistle when the idiots out there start their vitriol with police called to guard referee John Beaton's house?" And he goes on and says, he's talking about John Moss, who's in Australia. He's not very happy with John Moss's handling of the referees out there. Well, that's his opinion. He's entitled to do that if he wants. Then he sends me another text later on, and thanks very much, Doug, for getting in touch. He does mention Dan Robertson went some way to restoring the reputation of Scottish referees with a virtuoso performance supported by VAR with their correct intervention to rule the second Celtic goal valid. And then he also mentions, I'll just read it all out together, Keith. Another point is that Thomas Kirk, an outstanding EPL prospect from the next pool of referees. However, he dropped courage from his repertoire at Wolves by somehow missing the most obvious penalty of the season to Fulham. Just finishing, we'll go on to Thomas Kirk in a second, Keith.
Yes.
Just finishing with the Scottish one. You're right what you say. There's no way, even if there wasn't a World Cup, that they're going to replay that game because the referee's decision is final. Paraphrasing there, and that's it. And they're not going to overturn that decision. On Thomas Kirk, is he an up and coming rising star, Keith?
Well, I mean, first of all, Doug Prentice is a referee of vast experience at the very highest level. So
I was being very generous when I said to him, young man.
And therefore, when he speaks, I certainly listen. There's no question about that. And I think we share very similar views in relation to refereeing. Thomas Kirk, for me, is like, when we look at, and I'm being blunt, when we look at that decision at Manchester United where the referee was called to the screen by the VAR correctly because he not awarded a free kick for a deliberate handball. When he went to the screen, it was just he's going to overturn. He's going to agree with the VAR. You couldn't do anything other than that. The Manchester United player had trapped the ball literally between his body and his arm. There was,
Sorry, Keith, and that was just a comment by Tommy Green, who's a regular. He said, Keith, everything you have said, I will put it on the screen. Hold on there. Put it on the screen. Everything you have said would make the game more enjoyable and put a stop to all this grappling. What are your views on the Man United goal? Clear handball, in my opinion. I presume he's talking about the one just the other day.
Yeah, it was over the weekend. And
it was.
Spot on. I mean, it was an easy decision. And this is the sad state of play. I couldn't believe that Howard Webb had appointed this referee to this particular game. I was really surprised. I've said in the past, there are football clubs and team managers, when a team gets promoted from the Championship into the Premier League, that's the test for the player. Can he actually operate at the very highest level of the game? And I think that Salisbury's career has been accelerated. And I think that at times this season, I've seen exposure to a lack of, if you like, experience. He's not a young guy. His father was a very good referee. But I just feel it was the wrong appointment for this particular referee. I'm being blunt here because I don't like saying it. In the past, when I've had referees at the PGMOL, when I was boss, who were not really making it, then my responsibility was to talk to that referee, give him extra coaching advice from my top level coaches, and then probably give him a run in the championship, not as demotion, but actually get that confidence back, get that experience, and prove to me you can referee. The ultimate thing is, I've taken referees off the competition. Thomas Kirk. I think the championship.
Just on that,
yeah,
refereeing in the championship, that's a tough league.
Oh, listen,
it's a really good grounding for an up and coming referee. If you can referee there, you can referee anywhere.
Absolutely, but you've also got EFL and EF2, the league. So you make that decision, and then you're very selective with the games. If we look this weekend in the Newcastle game, Jared Gillett, very experienced referee now, has really found himself in the Premier League. He's an outstanding Australian referee. He was their top referee, but he's now. I watched his performance very closely. His movement, reading of the game, the application of law, the management of the players. There isn't. Somebody said, "Oh, he looks a bit stern at times." Well, of course he does. He's telling the players he's not going to accept the poor behaviour.
Yeah.
So when we look at the championship, I think we've got a number of referees: Lewis Smith, Thomas Kirk, Farah Halam, and these guys are now getting a run out. I agree. I think it was a poor decision in terms of that one that's been mentioned with regard to Thomas Kirk. But maybe, and in the games that I've seen him, he's got all the characteristics and the ability to referee at the top level. And he was given a run out this weekend. You have to blood these guys into officiating at the Premier League level, elite level. But I worry about the selection of individuals that have actually officiated on the Premier League. In the case of Moss, for example, he didn't keep his job very long as VAR. And to suddenly see him pop up as the boss of referees in Australia, I've gone, what?
How do they get these jobs, Keith? How do they get these jobs? They're never advertised. I've never seen them advertised.
No. And then you've got Martin Atkinson, who was a VAR and didn't do very well in England, suddenly becomes a VAR operator in Scotland.
And Doug, whom you say is a very experienced referee in Australia, and he's quite critical of John Moss. And he even mentions Martin Atkinson as well. He's quite critical of him. So Doug knows what he's talking about. He's not a...
I don't see Moss's scenario. He was a school teacher, headmaster in an infant school or whatever. He never struck me as someone who could manage people effectively. But that's my opinion.
Yeah,
sure. I've got a degree of evidence. I think Martin Atkinson's a really nice guy. And I was surprised. But then when you've got Riley, who's moved on from his job at the PGMOL, after what I think was 10 plus disastrous years, suddenly pops up in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And I've gone, huh?
But he's only there for one reason, Keith. You know that?
Oh, yeah.
He's only there for one reason.
IFAB. Yeah, and then
IFAB, yeah.
And then
why would he go from the Premier League? Why would he go from the Premier League to? It's like going from the Premier League down to the Northern Premier League, but 7 or 8.
Well, I mean, my view is very strong. I helped as I've mentioned before, I helped the MLS to set up pro referee. And I said in that remit, I said to them, your aim must be to get an American citizen to manage this organization. They wanted me to manage it, and I got a job at the PGMOL at the time. I put forward Peter Walton. Peter Walton went and did a really good job. Howard Webb followed him. I don't know. Howard Webb went to Saudi Arabia, didn't last long. Now in charge of the PGMOL, and today he's, the comment was he's contacted Nottingham Forest to tell them.
I saw that. Yeah, I'd like to discuss that. I'd like to discuss that at length, Keith. Just remind you guys out there, you're watching the Ref's Opinion. We go live every Monday night, 8 o'clock on facebook.com/Hanging Judge Ref. You can see the address on the bottom of the screen there. And please do get in touch. Give us your comments and make your statements, so long as they're not derogatory or defamatory in any way to either the show or to my guest. Love to hear your comments. Yeah, Keith, this apology by the PGMOL to Nottingham Forest.
Howard Webb.
What is going on?
Well, I mean, it was a massive error. And I have to say, having made comments in the past, this is not the first error that Nottingham Forest have faced this season.
Yeah,
they've been on the wrong end of a few, and that happened. That's football. That can happen. You're dealing with human beings. They can't always be 100%. Like players, they make mistakes. But I would, when that happened on my watch, I'd be at the ground talking face to face with the manager, because I wanted to look in that manager's eyes and see how he was receiving my explanation in terms of an error made by a match official. I would also say at the same time, this is one decision out of several hundred the referee's made, and that several hundred he's got right. And I would then put a balance in and say, tell me how you deal with the centre forward who misses an open goal. That's the sport. That's the football we live in. I think Howard Webb's main role is making certain that the best informed referees are selected to the games. I've said before, I wouldn't have Michael Oliver in the role of VAR or fourth official. I wouldn't have Jared Gillett in that role, but then somebody reminded me that's the role he's going to have at the World Cup. It's not because he's incompetent. I want the top class referees refereeing week in, week out. And those other guys who would like to have a game, prove it. Prove that you're capable, as Farah Halam is doing, as Thomas Kirk is doing. Okay, he's made a mistake. Was it right? Was it the right end of the season to put him in? These are choices that people have to make. And, talking just briefly about Mike Riley, I understand now that he's actually advising Japan in terms of their referees. So he's got himself another job. I don't know if that's in addition to the one in Northern Ireland, but somebody in Northern Ireland say they don't see him very often, but who knows?
But there again,
I'm being a bit naughty here.
How do they get these jobs, Keith?
I don't know. I mean,
do they have an agent?
Well, when I look at Northern Ireland, I know where you sit, and I know your experience, your ability to communicate and being a people person. And I go, why Riley? Why not? I mean, I said this some weeks ago to a friend of mine. And then if you look, there's in the background is Alan Snoddy as well.
Yeah.
Who's been world-class World Cup referee, a member of UEFA, a member of the UEFA Referees Convention, very articulate. I don't know who makes these decisions.
Well, unless he didn't want it, maybe he was offered
Well,
it.
he may not have wanted it.
Yeah. No, I mean, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how to get these jobs. Coming to the end of the season now, is it a good time to try out new referees at the end of the season? Last games can be very important depending if you're up at the top, and like the Celtic game, or even the Arsenal Man City games. They're vying for that top position, but the middle of the table games, it's always a good time, I would think, to try out new guys and give them a run.
Yeah, I think that one of the difficulties, absolutely, but one of the difficulties is that every point earns something like £1 million to the club.
Of course, yeah, I forgot.
So there is, you've got to ensure. I personally used to take the view last weekend of the season, every referee that's delivered top class performances in the league table that I used to have, 1 to 10, right, automatically were on those 10 games. It would be the week before the end of the season that I might try someone in a midweek game.
Yeah.
There's got really nothing on it other than points make prizes. But I would do that in that situation. There's a lot of detail in terms of the management of the final games at the end of the season. Invariably, there's a Premier League representative at every ground. They have got stopwatches, and they're going to ensure that the games kick off at exactly the same time. And then the half time is monitored with the hope that the second half all kicks off at the same time. And that's the management of the games to make certain that, you don't get some stupid reactions in terms of promotion, relegation, or whatever.
No, yeah. Oh, Keith, thanks very much again for joining me. Sorry to you people out there. We did start late. I thought we were actually live, but in fact we weren't. So we were somewhat close to 8-9 minutes late starting. But when you're dealing with an idiot like me who's not computer literate and trying to fiddle these things, I really need a producer and a director to push all these buttons and just leave me sitting in the chair and talking and announcing things. But anyway, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your participation. Big thank you to Tommy and to Doug, of course, from Australia, and especially to Keith for joining us and your patience, Keith. Much appreciated. Until next Monday, same time, 8 o'clock next Monday. Good night and God bless you all. Thank you.
Good night.